What's one rule that your school workplace has implemented that absolutely backfired? During our general meeting last week, the owner of the company went on a bit of a rant about negative reviews of management on a popular jobs website with a green logo. He demanded that we stop posting negative reviews immediately and shamed anyone in the room who had done so. As you can guess, people doubled down and posted their grievances on the same day as the meeting. The green logo company doesn't take too kindly to that sort of behavior. Seriously, they will terminate service if management is caught doing that. Report it. Because of rumors of a drug problem in the school, the administration decided to drug test students. The media jumped all over that. Violation of our civil rights or something. The initial statement was that anyone who failed the test would be kicked out of school. After the 40th or so kid failed, they changed the policy to mandatory meetings with the counselor. After the 100th kid failed, they hired another counselor. Our school just brought in drug-sniffing dogs that would randomly come into classrooms. The thing was, the sheriff's department would always be parked in front of the school before the first bell with clearly marked K9 cars. So anybody who had drugs would see the cars and just skip school that day. Absences increased massively. My high school banned girls from wearing any shirt that exposed their bra straps because seeing a bra strap would give high school boys evil thoughts. Most of the girls in school responded by wearing the same shirts they'd always worn, without bras. As a teenage boy, it was a happy couple weeks. The school tried to then mandate that all female students wear bras, until a male teacher asked a 15-year-old if she was wearing appropriate undergarments or not. She called him a pervert. Her parents, who thought the whole dress code things was as stupid as most of the students, threatened a sexual harassment suit against the school. Everybody in charge panicked and it all went back to the way it was before they tried to change anything. Until a male teacher asked a 15-year-old if she was wearing appropriate undergarments or not. This is my favorite tale of the thread. The thought of the yawning chasm that opened up beneath this rules makes me chuckle. My old boss tried implementing an incentive scheme for the underperformers while anyone who consistently did well received nothing. 3 of us quit within a month. We used to be allowed to stream music etc on our computers. Spotify was an approved program and would come installed on your computer. Someone complained about productivity despite us always doing our work, and so they banned streaming of any kind on our computers. But now everyone just listens on their phone, so you walk around the office and nearly everyone has their phone out now, so it looks even worse when sponsors come into the office. Yo, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube are easily my best work friends. Banging out emails all day without listening to music would be borderline unbearable. Work instituted a points system for being late or calling off sick. Accrue too many points and you get written up, fired if it continues. They doled out the same number of points whether someone was a minute late or called off altogether. And if an absence lasted up to 5 days, it was still only 1 absence. So anyone who overslept or encountered heavy traffic and was running late would just stay home for the rest of the week. After several months, they decided that being late was only worth half a point. In our office, we're not allowed to have more than 14 consecutive days off. So one guy booked a cruise for a month, booked off 14 days, then 1 day back, then another 14 days off. He called in sick on his 1 day back. We weren't allowed to be friends with kids in grades above us, but we could be friends with kids in grades below us. That rule didn't last long. Turn to your left and shake hands with the person standing next to you. At an industrial site I used to work for, they introduced an absolutely no overtime policy. The people that most commonly worked overtime were the maintenance guys. They had to cut out their preventative maintenance in order to make their hours while being available for all shifts. It took 3 months of daily breakdowns before they decided to try something else. How more maintenance would be a good compromise to that rule? Boss insists that lunchtime is from 12 o'clock 12:30 p.m. No exceptions. Lunch is not paid time. The second day he comes in hot to trot with something for me to do between 12 o'clock and 12:30 and needs it done right away. I look over at my clock, which says 12:09 or whatever, and say, "You said yesterday that lunch is from 12 o'clock to 12:30. No exceptions," and went back to my sandwich. If I don't get paid from 12 o'clock to 12:30, there's no way in heck I'm working for free. College removed chairs in cafeteria so people wouldn't hang around. Now people just don't eat at the cafeteria. It's a ghost hall and most of the food is thrown away daily. Really sad. God forbid anyone socialize in a building of the college they're paying for while eating food they are also paying for. Lonadal, a 14 school in Lonadal, MO, late 80s, early 90s. Our fairly small, rural school went from K8. So, we split lunch times in our gym cafeteria. For some reason our school actually invested in a noise control system because we could apparently be quite loud during lunch, and I guess the teachers got tired of trying to keep us kids quiet-ish and eat. This new piece of equipment was mounted high on the wall and looked exactly like a stoplight. When it was green, we were free to talk. If it became yellow, we were to be careful of how much noise we made. If it turned red it would buzz loud, like when the game clock runs out at a basketball game. Installing this thing almost immediately had the opposite effect they desired. It became a game to us. We would only get quiet in order to make it go back to green. Then, as a large group, we would progressively get louder. We would stall it out at yellow before surging our collective voices to make it hit red and BUZZZZ, at which time we would all cheer, laugh and get quiet again to reset it to green. Good times. That's why they frown on putting breathalyzers in bars. Turns it into a competition. Any support call lasting longer than 25 minutes must be reported to higher ups for review. I.e., if you have too many, no matter if it's your fault or not, you get a disciplinary review. I implemented the rule of politely hang up on a customer as close to 25 minutes as you can and call them right back. I am sorry, I am experiencing a small issue with my phone. Is it okay if I call you right back? Gotcha. Outgoing calls are not reported or recorded. It's amazing. Any software related to job, whether written inside or outside company time, belongs to the company, me. So if I write and release malware at home, it's the company's problem? The clause was immediately removed. Outside company time, that has got to be illegal. My friend worked as a technician at a place that did installation for telecom, sound, cable, pretty much anything tech related really. The techs were paid by work order completion. Each job had a value that got paid out when you finished the work order. The experienced techs could finish more jobs in a day and made some seriously good money. They were motivated to work fast to get more jobs done, but also to do it correctly because having to go back within a certain time window and fix a problem didn't pay out, so it lost money. Well, some new management came in and decided to change everyone to hourly wages. Their idea to make techs focus on getting the job done right and not rushing it. All the really good techs saw a massive pay cut from it and immediately quit. The rest of the techs suddenly had no reason to finish jobs quickly since you got paid the same whether you did 2 installs or 10 installs in one day. So everyone just started slacking off. Within a few weeks the orders were backed up so bad install dates were pushed out for a month or more. And when people finally did get their stuff installed, it took all day instead of a couple hours. That one change completely fricked over the company. Nothing like greedy management to completely frick up a good thing. No cell phones in high school. Security collected them when you walked in, put them in Ziploc bags, and locked them up. They lost like 5 people's phones. Lost. Had a fellow at my old place of work that was promoted to sales manager. Within a few days he drafts up a document which he tries to get all of us to sign, basically stating that we aren't working to our full potential and that to make profits so we would have to work even when we weren't working, aka taking calls from customers no matter the day or time. This resulted in an almost immediate revolt and about 10 plus people bypassing him directly and going right to the owner. He was demoted, then later fired within a week. Pizza place I worked at in high school implemented a zero tolerance policy on employees taking home any food home that wasn't paid for at non-employee prices. Any screw ups or unpicked up orders trash. The local homeless population started flocking to the store and calling in bogus orders because they knew there would be free pizza in the dumpster every night. Our process integrity people decided every international order over $100,000 needed to be approved by a manager at the purchase requisition stage before the sales order could be processed. The problem? Purchase requisitions only generated after the sales order was completed. This meant it was impossible to complete any international order worth more than $100,000, and they launched this policy unannounced 2 days before Christmas. I ended up staying in the office until 9 at night trying to get our data people to create a way for me to order $300K in parts from Sweden before the holidays. I was told this story when I was in the army by a parachute rigger. The workday in the army is 9 o'clock 4:30. Riggers packing troop chutes had a daily quota of 35 chutes. Once they got good at it, these guys could be done by 2:30, which is a very nice workday indeed. Well, they got this new captain who decided that since these guys are getting 35 done by 2:30, then obviously making them work until 4:30 would increase output even more. So of course that unit's numbers went way down, and the 35 and you're done for the day was quickly reinstated. From another perspective, parachuters might have preferred when the riggers were taking their time rather than rushing through the process to leave early. No backpacks in the classroom, which led to hundreds of backpacks in the principal's office one morning. No one gave a frick about that rule. In Germany, you need a paper from your doctor when you are sick at least 3 days. They enforced that you needed one even if you just are away for 1 day. So everyone had to go to the doctor if not feeling right, and of course we were away for weeks. We have the same here in Finland. My superiors accept that you call them if you have fever or something minor. 1-2 days off and mark them as normal working hours, rather than going to doctor and get 1-2 weeks of sick leaves. Works for me, works for them. A big shipping company I worked at for a couple months said we would be working 7 AM to 4 PM. They didn't tell all the new employees, including myself, that holiday hours were going to be 7 AM to whenever the frick we feel like telling you to go home, around 10 to 11 PM. Naturally, people would get in 5 to 7 hours of work and go on break, then just not come back. That led to we can no longer allow lunch breaks. Me and roughly 50-70 other workers quit on the spot. The deputy head of our school banned fidget spinners, and rightly so. In his defense, they were everywhere. On the final day of year 11, someone hacked his school intranet login and edited the bulletin, leaving a notice in his name, saying that fidget spinners were now not only unbanned, but mandatory, and that aficionados could come to his office and learn tips and tricks from him. Real world heroism. Stopped giving kickback for walk-in sales. I work at a hotel and the high management had the bright idea not to give us anything for charging walk-ins, late checkouts, early check-ins and upgrades. So now we give them for free whenever we can. Then some shat will leave that they're certified as they were and charged for X after talking to Y in their TripAdvisor review. It was actually my rule. When I was managing a store, my rule was that the closer had to do all the closing work and mark the checklist, and I would check it the following morning. However, I put a loophole in. If you close tonight and open tomorrow, you can come in early the following morning. I was really the only one who closed and then opened the following morning, and I knew that on many of those days I worked 10 hours with non-stop managerial work. So instead of staying late to clean, I like to come in early and do it in sunlight. Well, one day I followed my rule, and the next morning I woke up sick and had to call an employee to cover. He showed up to a dirty store, opted not to clean, and then got written up when the owner made a surprise visit. I didn't close, so it wasn't my job, and the owner said you work here and the store is dirty, so it is your job. I then had to go tell the owner that it was my fault, and he still responded regardless of what you did or didn't do. He came into a dirty store and did not clean it. That's not acceptable. I removed my rule change and just made it mandatory to clean before leaving, LOL. A few years ago we weren't allowed to stand in groups bigger than 4 at our school because this old teacher told us it was gang behavior and encouraging gang violence. One day my entire year of like 100 plus people got in a massive group screaming gang gang and throwing gang signs on our school field, so they had to bring every single teacher out to try and split us apart for a straight 20 minutes. Best school day ever. We did a mass hug around the flagpole, then spent 3 days holding any hand of any person you walked by. This was after they told us we could not touch anyone. A nursing home in our area thought it would be a great idea to bring back the traditional white nursing caps. They made it mandatory for all female nurses to wear during their shifts or be written up, and eventually pointing yourself out. Male nurses were not included. About half of the staff quit within the first 2 weeks. Several started working at my facility. The others that stayed said that the residents and families of residents laughed and made fun of the nurses constantly. Pretty degrading and sexist comments. Basically about 3 months after this all went down, someone from corporate came in and fired all the directors who implemented the uniform change, and everything went back to normal. Several nurses stayed with my company, but a few went back when the rules changed. Used to work in an inpatient treatment facility. One of the perks was that meals were provided to staff members. The new CEO decided that it was far too expensive to feed clients and staff and put the kibosh to it in an effort to trim the food budget. The food at this place used to be decent, with a competent cook who knew how to use fresh ingredients. Now the food provided is processed and gross. Last I heard, the cook quit and they have the handyman preparing meals. The kicker? The food budget has gone up because now the food is all pre-made frozen. The clients hate it and most of it goes in the trash. No swapping shifts without a shift swap form. Immediately backfired when the manager had a stack of shift swap forms every day to approve and update the digital roster. My middle school tried to prohibit students from bringing backpacks into class. You could bring a purse, bag, etc. However, just not a backpack. They wanted students to either stop by their locker before every class period, impossible without being late, or carry a large stack of heavy textbooks around all day. Due to the latter reason, the rule got cancelled within a week. This was in 1998-99, so I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve with this rule. One job I had a nails should only be in neutral colors rule. Every rule was enforced rather strictly except for this one, because per the words of a manager, every woman would get written up. Rule at my workplace WS that if you were late you had to bring donuts for everyone. People quickly figured out that the cost of being 4 hours late was to bring donuts. As a result, if you were running late you just had a slow easy morning and stopped by to pick up donuts on your way in. Our boss, who had put the rule into place, thought it was funny and just let it continue. He was an easygoing guy and really good at motivating people. Letting them get away with this sort of thing meant they stayed late or showed up after hours for emergencies. Not me, but my friend's old place. My friend was one to show up a half hour early before work and was a commission-based salesman with salary, just like the other salesmen, who would always show up barely on time to hours late. Friday night comes along and management decides to hold a meeting to announce the new policy. If you're late, you go home for the day, and if you're late 3 days a month, you're fired. The weekend goes by and everyone is on time. During the week, a few people call out sick right as the store opens. The weekend is coming up and my buddy is scheduled for Saturday, but not Sunday or Monday, and he's going to Disneyland with his wife, who has Saturday, Sunday and Monday off. Friday night he packs his wife's car. Saturday comes along and he's in the parking lot a half hour early. He pops in his favorite cassette, fires up a joint, and proceeds to hotbox his car. He walks in 5 minutes late, reeking of pot, looks at the clock, and then to his boss in front of the whole sales floor, and loudly says, "Oops, I'm late. Guess I need to go home," with a crap-eating grin on his face. The bosses started backpedaling the policy and started to tell him it wasn't for him and they'll let it slide. He loudly stated that it wouldn't be fair if they made an exception for him and that he would see them Tuesday. When he got back to work on Tuesday, the policy was gone. Same company years later hired some absolute genius of an accountant who sold the idea to management that employees were making more than management, and that they should go from commission to salary. All the top salesmen jumped ship ASAP. The remaining bottom feeders got a raise compared to their normal salary and commission, and they didn't have to do crap all day to get it. Less than a year later, they shut their doors for the last time. Jesus Christ. What fool thinks it's a good idea to completely remove the incentive for selling things? That's how you go from a place of business to Walmart FFS. One of top managers for my work decided that everyone who's worked there for 7+ years had to do a special online training course that consisted of 2 400+ page volumes of leadership training followed by a 25 question test for each volume. You were expected to complete this within 1 year of being automatically signed up for the course. Failure to pass the tests or to complete the course by the end of that year rendered you ineligible for promotions and almost guaranteed to be laid off within a year. So many people tried to take the guaranteed severance package option by not doing the course that they had to change the rule that you wouldn't get laid off or not promoted, but you still had to do the course. People still didn't do it. That guy finally left shortly after and a new guy replaced him and promptly chucked that course and the whole idea of it into the garbage. When my school moved to a newly built site, they also tried to establish a new rule or set for a new generation or something. The first one, because they loved their fancy new building so much, was that nobody was allowed to leave the building until the end of the school day, including breaks. The front door would literally be locked unless there was a fire alarm. Suffice to say either nobody turned up or a lot of fire alarms were pulled before the rule was thrown away. There were also military-style uniform inspections at random throughout the day, and they looked at us, I was in 6th form, to set the example for the kids. However, they were so overzealous and dictatorial that it became comical, and we all very quickly stopped caring and told them to send us home or get lost and stop treating us like trash. There were more stupid rules like this, but our first group of 6th form ended up tearing them all down in a couple of months. I didn't reach my 6th form until much older in life. Great work, horses. Phones should be stowed away in a box in the front of the classroom. Everyone was like, me. We'll see how it goes. In other words, number. Yeah, like I'd leave 800 pounds sitting in a box in the front of a classroom full of people still learning morals. Programmer here. Management implemented an agile work tracking system that measured programmers by the amount of feature requests they completed. We quickly figured out how to game that system by breaking everything down into the maximum number of feature requests we could imagine. We'd make separate feature stories for make new button, make button blue, make button respond when clicked, make new page for the new report, run business logic to get results, display results in grid, set font for grid, make grid sortable, make back button return to previous page. We became great at dividing a one-day task into 21-hour tasks. Management loved it. Our team looked 20 times as productive and became an example to show off our process as the best performing team, despite producing far less actual work and more useless form filling. For some reason my department started a rule having to keep phones in their cars or locker. Eventually the supervisor said frick it cause no other department was told this. No N-words in the Huck Finn. Our high school teacher made us buy the censored version for his class and numerous parents complained about the censorship as well as the added cost. Since our school library had sets of the original we could have read for free. It's history. Embrace it. Accept it. Don't repeat it. Oh gosh. In school back in the day we participated in a diversity-driven activity carried out in the form of the Wall of Tolerance or something along those lines. Basically we had to write down stereotypes and put them up so we could tear them down. It ended up looking like the wall of racism. It was so bad. I'm just glad we didn't end up on local news. Way back in the antediluvian days of the 20th century, I worked as a government inspector in one of the larger US states. This was before the advent of government employee unions. Each fiscal year, the personnel department would come up with proposals for reimbursing employees for official travel, discuss it with an employee association, and send it to the state legislature for rubber stamping. One year, someone came up with the bright idea that travel reimbursement should cover more than overnight trips. Employees who were required to travel more than 25 miles from their headquarters should get a lunch allowance. My guess is that no one looked hard at the proposal, and those that did were thinking of staff who went to occasional meetings, not people who were on the road every day. Well, my agency had the state divided up into districts. Inspectors in the districts were on the road almost daily. In my case, it was a combination of overnight and day trips. It was pretty common to be more than 25 miles away from my office, and my colleagues and I discovered that it was easy to change pretty common to almost always. Multiply that by not only my own agency staff, but staff in every other agency that did field work. We cleaned up on the lunch allowances. The state budget for employee travel was completely blown before the year was half over. And, as soon as legally possible, the rule was changed to cover only specific emergency conditions. When I was in 8th grade, my school implemented a new iPad program. We were recognized as an Apple certified school or some bulls like that. The problem was that students were just using them to play games. Administration didn't have any way to crack down on it, and teachers had no clue how to implement it into the classroom. We constantly played 2048 in class, since it was impossible for them to block all the different iterations for it, and when they made it an instant demerit to be found playing it. Even in lunch and homeroom, we just switched over to browser Tetris. It was so bad that one kid who sat right next to me didn't even try to focus on school. He would spend the entire period playing on his iPad, then constantly complain that he kept scoring 50s and 60s on his tests. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.